Well, good morning, good morning. Today we have a very special episode. Today we're going to be riding a very strange motorcycle, and no, I'm not talking about the MT-07. No, I don't think we're going to take the 698, and we're definitely not taking the Ducati V4. You know, now I'm kind of looking at this, I really don't understand how I'm going to fit 4 bikes in here, but oh well. Now, today we are riding a motorcycle that has not been truly featured on this page in a very long time. I think you guys can already guess it.
She has been absent on the page for a long period of time. The 2024 Kawasaki H2. We got my girl back. This bike has been missing from the page for an incredibly long period of time. I know she's been absent. It's been a very long winter here where I live in Ohio, and so I'm just glad to have my H2 back. Of course, the best beginner bike of all time. With that full exhaust and tune with that supercharger, this bike is pushing about 250 wheel horsepower with a top speed of well over 200 miles an hour. If you're a beginner worrying about getting into motorcycles and thinking that's a lot of power for a first bike, I have something to tell you. This bike does, in fact, have a rain mode. Why is my Kawasaki H2 a naked bike? There was supposed to be a panel right here that covers this. What happened? Oh god. So as it would appear, I think my H2 is totaled. She had a panel right here, and she had a panel on the other side. Normally, you would not be able to see the oil filter that is right there. That's the oil filter. I don't know what happened to it. I haven't ridden this bike all winter. She's missed. That part's probably going to be $300, dude. You know how expensive parts are for the Kawasaki H2? They're incredibly expensive, which is honestly a good segue into the reason why this bike is actually a terrible beginner bike. Beginner bikes, you want something that has cheap parts, something that's easy to work on yourself, something that doesn't have a lot of things that can potentially go wrong, because when you go really fast, things can get really wrong. So a little update to the Yamaha R6. Check her out, boys. She's got working turn signals. Oh, and she's got a working horn. Yeah, so I think the R6 is now fully street legal, so I think tomorrow in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to go get the street title for this bike. That's going to have to wait for tomorrow, as it seems. Today, we're going to be shopping for beginner motorcycles on my Kawasaki Ninja H2. I thought this would be the most ironic and comical way to go shopping for a beginner bike. And before anybody asks, no, we're not going to be buying anything today. I will, however, be talking about some motorcycles that I do have my eye on, because, as you know, I love motorcycles and I love spending money on them. It's so much fun. But in my never-ending quest to get people into motorcycles, I thought I would give you guys my recommendations and my personal favorites when it comes to beginner motorcycles. Let's get into it. Jesus Christ, why do I own this thing? Holy Jesus, Mary, Mother, Joseph in heaven. This is just the stupidest thing I own. Why do I have this thing? Pure stupidity, that's why. We got a very peculiar situation. Today's video is just supposed to be about beginner bikes. That's a fuel light. That is the nearest gas station. I'm in the middle of a national park. I didn't think I would run out of fuel here. 14 minutes away, 9 miles. I don't know if I got enough gas. I wasn't really paying attention to the fuel light until just now. It might have been on for quite a while. The supercharger on the H2, not particularly too fuel efficient. I can't believe I'm out here in the middle of nowhere, and now I have to figure out how to get to a gas station. Oh god. Dude, I don't think I've ever cut it this close in my life. That fuel light was scaring me the entire time, bro. Look at that, nothing in there. 93. I'm very curious kind of to see what kind of gas mileage we were getting, because I'm pretty sure before I put the tune on this bike last year, this bike would go about 70 miles before you would have to look for a gas station and fill up. This time I got the gas light. Before even 65 miles. That's really bad gas mileage considering how big of a gas tank this thing usually has. Look at that, we put 3.5 gallons in. That's a pretty good amount for a sport bike. And let's see here, we had 70 miles on the dot, and that was after, like, I have not been ripping on this bike. That was like nice, clean, normal rippage. That was not anything crazy. So let's see here, 3.5, 70 miles. What kind of miles per gallon were we getting? 70 divided by 3.5, 20 miles to the gallon. And again, let me remind you, I was not ripping this thing at all. Going the speed limit pretty much everywhere because it's kind of cold out. I was waiting for the bike to warm up. I wasn't doing anything crazy. I'm literally just commuting. It's midday. There's a ton of traffic. I literally don't have the opportunity to rip this bike. I'm riding this bike as calmly as humanly possible, and we still got only 20 miles to the gallon. Ridiculous. Jesus. This thing is stupid, bro. And she's already getting warm. Would you look at that? 190 degrees, dude. Jesus, after just a quick pull. It was one tiny little pull. That wasn't even anywhere near its top speed. Gotta make sure you stop for the kiddos, huh? This is why you slow down in school zone. And here we are. We have arrived at State 8 Motorcycle. Let's see if I could squeeze old Bitsy in here. One of the first beginner bikes that you might find yourself at a dealership looking at is one of these Triumph Speed 400. Luckily, these have been out for about a year now, so you might be able to find a really good deal on one of these on Marketplace. Triumphs tend to depreciate pretty quickly, even though they're generally considered really good motorcycles. What's cool about this motorcycle is it has a nice little lively one-cylinder, which can be an advantage because it weighs less than some of the other competition. It also has a chain on the other side of a motorcycle, which typically your motorcycle chain is going to be on the clutch side, so it's a little bit different and special because of that. And of course, but not least, it is a Triumph. And so if you're looking for something with a little bit more spice than your typical Japanese beginner bikes, and this is probably going to be something for you. A common theme that you're going to see across all the motorcycles I'm going to be talking about today is that they're beginner oriented, but I understand that the people who watch my page and watch me understand that some motorcycles are better than others for characterful reasons. I chose the motorcycles that I chose in my lineup because they're full of character. Not necessarily because they're the best riding motorcycles of all time, but because I like them. They're full of character. And the antithesis to that is probably going to be this Daytona 660. This is a bike that does compromise. As you can see, these clip-on bars are raised up to make this bike more comfortable, and it's also rocking the 660 engine, which is a far cry from the old 765 and 675 motors that Triumph used to put in these Daytonas. It also has a steel frame and is just, it's very flat. I hate to say it. This is also kind of a more expensive beginner bike, and also has a lot more power than typically something you're going to be looking for. So when it comes to the Daytona 660, unless you're finding a really good deal on one of these bikes, I hate to say it, you might be better off skipping it. Next up is going to be one of my personal favorites for a beginner bike, and I already know there's always comments whenever I talk about this, like, oh, the R7 is definitely not a beginner bike. I don't agree with you. I think given the right hands and the right personality, this is a phenomenal beginner bike. However, it does end up being a little bit on the pricier side just because Yamaha tax. They are one of the more expensive Japanese bikes, and they do hold their value better than most Japanese bikes. As it stands, the R7 still comes with a nice cable throttle, and so it's going to end up being a lot smoother than a lot of these bikes with electronic throttles these days. Hey.
What's up, dude?
What's going on? I passed the Peninsula cop doing like 60 to 35 down there. I really hope they didn't do a little picture thing, but I hope not. He was sitting still, yeah. I heard that they'll just like take a picture of your plate and send you a speeding ticket in the mail, but I'm like, I'm just trying to be legal. I'm not trying to do the dumb shit I did last year, so. Because look how that ended, so.
Did you get taller? Did you grow an inch over the winter?
I think I shrunk with the accident.
Really?
Yeah, no, seriously, for real. To compress my spine a little bit, so. Yeah, it happens. You learn. The R7, in my opinion, is probably one of the best looking beginner style bikes that you're ever going to find, but again, problem is it's always going to be a little bit pricier than the other options. But this is a bike that you can buy, likely be totally fine depending on your personality and if you rode dirt bikes before, and you can cherish this bike for probably 2 or 3 years and have zero problems. This bike has tons of character, has the same motor that's in my MT-07 that I ride around, and so even with like 5 or 6 years of experience, you can still find a way to have a ton of fun on these bikes. And the best part is, you can take this bike on track. It has a nice little solid piece right here that increases the rigidity of the chassis and also has much better suspension than my MT-07 has. And so this bike is a weapon on the track. And so I highly recommend this bike as a beginner bike. It's just, if you can save up a little bit of money, especially with the R9 coming out, I know a ton of people, these things are going to be flooding the market as people sell them. I really think that they're one of the most slept on bikes of all time. And I really wish that people didn't kind of have a stigma behind them. They're awesome machines. Next up with the little Yamaha continuation is going to be the Yamaha MT-03. Now these bikes unfortunately lose a ton of value as soon as you buy them. And so it's probably best looking for one of these bikes on Marketplace. Very basic, very easy level beginner bike. Has the same motor as the R3, has the same suspension as the R3, I think. Same chassis, same everything. It's just a more naked style bike. The benefit to looking for this bike used on Marketplace is A, it's going to be really cheap. It's going to lose its value a lot quicker than the R3. But the downside of this bike is you're probably going to outgrow it within your first year of riding. But still, if you keep that stock exhaust and just ride it around stock, you don't have to put any money into it. They're really easy to work on. Really just all around awesome bikes to own if that's what you're looking for. A true beginner style bike. Someone's looking at an R3 over there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. These are really cool because like there's not really a market for them yet because they haven't been bought and sold used yet.
And they're just now starting to pick up and sell like crazy. The marketing and everything, and people are knowing what they are now, so they're starting to really take off.
Is this one used?
No, it's actually brand new with a couple of Aprilia's CNC accessories.
Oh, interesting.
Yep,
those definitely
pegs, levers.
Interesting. The downside of getting an R3 is it's going to sound like a Ninja 650 or like that 180-degree parallel twin. It sounds boring.
This sounds just like a mini RS 660.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
induction noise is crazy. The engine sounds like a little race bike. It's cool.
Yeah, so it's a much better, if you're looking for something that's like a smaller bike like the R3, something like if you're a little bit scared of like bikes like the R7 over there, then this would be a better option for you because it has the same sound as the R7, but in a smaller package that you can kind of work yourself up to.
and it has traction control, unlike any of the other bikes in this class.
Really?
It does.
Oh,
Yep.
that's new. Okay.
3 ride modes: Eco, Sport, and Rain.
And an aluminum frame, right?
Yep.
Dude, that's insane. A beginner bike with an aluminum frame. I mean, I think these cost a little bit more than like the typical like R3 and stuff, but
To make them, yeah, definitely.
I think it's worth it for the engine characteristic alone. Like to have that sound over the R3, which is just like a lawnmower, like like this is.
And they offer a quick shifter for this, so you can do quick shift up and down. The throttle is electronic.
No way.
Yep. No other bike that's a 2-cylinder small like this has that.
Full electronic throttle on a beginner bike. That's also sick. RS660. I'm not even gonna recommend the RS660 as a like the R7. I would be like, if somebody has some experience, like maybe dirt bikes as a kid or something, or like just feels like they can handle it, which I understand, like that's kind of a.
It's arguable though, because you can turn the power down and turn the traction control up.
But what kid's gonna do that?
Exactly.
Do you guys have a Gixxer 250? Do they still make those?
They still do make them.
Oh no! I was gonna say I kind of saw that in the corner of my eye, dude. It might be the lowest power or lowest CC beginner bike that they still make on the market.
It is. And there's one client that this really fits, and it's the ultra short rider.
Or I would even say like the ultra like nervous.
Yeah.
Like someone who's like really like they're not sure if they like motorcycles or not, and like they're a little bit scared of the throttle and stuff, which those people exist.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say they don't, but I try to think that every motorcycle has its place, but this is just definitely one of those bikes. Is it at least cheaper than the other ones?
Barely.
At least she has some pretty paint. I guess that's one way we could look at it. Maybe you could throw a turbo on it. I don't know. The ZX4RR. So my impression of this bike, when it first came out, there was a guy, I forget his name, down in the Metro Park. He passed me in the Metro Parks on this little bike. It was stolen break-in, he said. People give them a bad rep because they're like slow, but in the right hands, this thing can be a weapon. The only thing that kills me is the welded subframe on these bikes.
Yeah, one-piece frame. Yep.
Because if you wreck it, and it's a steel frame, it's really hard to snap that.
Right.
But in the off chance that something does happen, you're kind of cooked.
Yep.
This is the epitome of what I try to talk about on my page. This is like the characterful bike.
Yep.
It compromises all of the usability, the torque, and everything else for the character. Me personally, I would probably still go with the R7. But Christian, I got one more question for you. What's the best beginner bike of all time?
Ooh, Hayabusa.
The Busha? Can you detune these things so it's like a little bit more easy to handle?
No, but we can add a turbo to it.
Okay, well that would definitely... Would that add lag so that way when you pull on the throttle it doesn't immediately send you to jail?
Maybe, yeah.
Or heaven?
Yeah, until about like 8,000 RPM.
The last bike I wanted to talk about is, of course, going to be the Honda Grom. I remember when I was first getting into motorcycles thinking that, wow, this is the best beginner bike ever. Super small, super cheap. That's the main thing I was thinking about when I was first looking at it. The problem is, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is this bike is a case of too small. It's too small to teach you proper things about riding a motorcycle simply because of its size. Yes, these bikes are cheap, but you can find bigger bikes for cheaper on Marketplace if you're willing to look and have a little bit more patience. Since these bikes hold their value so well, trust me, there are other motorcycles that you can buy, like a 650 or something like that have way more power, way more material on them, but cost less because of depreciation. This is actually a motorcycle most people buy when they're a little bit more experienced and they're trying to learn technical aspects of riding, like wheelies or doing like parking lot figure eights and like weird stuff. They're not typically first options that people go with when learning how to ride to begin with. Oh yeah. Now the irony of saying all this stuff while riding a Kawasaki H2 is not lost on me. The reason that people tell you that you should be starting on a beginner bike in the first place is because they're cheap, because they're slow. The reason that people are telling you to buy a certain level of beginner bikes is because those bikes are cheap. Can you buy a BMW S1000RR and start on it? Can you buy an H2 and start on it? Maybe. But the odds of you dropping and losing all the value on that bike is incredibly high. This bike is a lot to handle, truthfully. It's a lot for even me to handle. And so for somebody who doesn't have that experience and you're gonna hop on a bike like this, you're gonna drop it. At the very least, if not wreck it and have something even more horrific happen to you. It's not an attack on anybody's ego, and you shouldn't feel that attack on your ego if you go out riding your beginner bike and have somebody dump on you for it. I would say even if you're very wealthy, even if you're very well off, like you got $20,000 you want to spend on a motorcycle, I would still start on something cheap, because the best motorcycle in the world is always going to be the one that you can buy and then afford to ride. Tires are insanely expensive. Insurance is very expensive. Motorcycle gear, good motorcycle gear, is very expensive. And trust me, you'd be better off in the long run if you just pony up and spend the money on that stuff first, initially. That way you're not spending money on cheap stuff and then have to buy the expensive stuff later anyway. Alright. I haven't had a thing to eat all day, dude. I'm so hungry. So, we're getting Chipotle.
And if a man wants to be a woman, he's still a man. It doesn't matter how hard he tries to be a woman. You are still a man. You were born with a and balls.
Huh. Well, that's how you know you're in Ohio, dude. Don't engage, don't engage. Yeah.
You do TikTok?
Yeah.
Are you Matthew Woods?
Yeah.
No way. I have not seen anybody with an H2 in Ohio.
There's a few of them. That's not just me. So if the cops come looking, it's not just me. But like, no, they're rare for a reason. They're weird bikes. I'm actually thinking about selling it. It's a little.
Looking at bikes recently to buy.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Dude, I was actually filming a video today. I did a beginner bike, what types of beginner bikes I like personally and like stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm assuming you guys probably don't ride right now, right? You ride a S1K? Did you just get that?
My friend gave it to me.
Gave it to you?
He bought it and then he was like, I'm not gonna ride this. I just bought another bike.
There ain't no way he just gave that to you, my boy. Well, what did you do?
It stays at his house and in his garage.
Okay, so he just lets you take it out. Okay. That's why we do it, boys. We do it for the beginners. Those guys were just telling me they're looking at getting some bikes, and I'm like, dude, I just filmed a video talking about beginner bikes. You're gonna love what's coming up here. It's good. They know me, so they can confirm. I mean, I'm like half serious about selling this bike. Like, it's something that's contemplated, like crossing my mind. It just comes back to my riding philosophy. This bike does not really fit into that. I mean, it is a bike that is full of character. Like, that's something I really look for in the motorcycles that I own. But in terms of what I can do with this bike, there's not much. It's not even like a good track bike. This is not even a bike that you buy and then go on track and have a good time. Like, there are bikes that are way cheaper than this, that are way faster around the track. It's just like, what is this for? Probably someone like me who does social media and wants like the bike that everyone's like, wow, H2, wow. But that's not me. That's not who I want to be. That's not the person I would aspire to be. This bike is really fun in the straight line, but it's just like, you could tell just by like my beginner bike recommendations and what I tell people, like outwardly, what I tell people to invest in and like what bikes to look at. I could literally sell this, buy an R1, and then pocket like another 12-15 grand, like, and have 12-15 grand in my bank account that I could spend on like a trailer and go travel this summer. Like, this bike is so much. Here we are. I try to turn as quick as possible. I don't want to get rear-ended. Yeah, that dude didn't slow down at all, bro. So by the time you're seeing this video, I will probably have already made my decision if I bought this thing or not, so we'll see about this. So this is the supermoto I was talking about. It's a KTM 450 SMR. This is a race 450. It's essentially like an MX bike that they like threw supermoto tires on. It's a very weird, very niche thing, and probably would actually be the dumbest thing I would ever buy in my life. This is not like a normal motorcycle. First of all, it's a track bike, so it doesn't have a plate, doesn't have lights, obviously any of that. That's like all normal stuff that I've dealt with before with the R6. The caveat to this is this doesn't have an official plate bracket, lights, things like that you can just buy off of eBay. So this would be probably a bike that would just be kept without all of those lights. Secondary problem, it's a race motor, so it requires like a full top end rebuild every like 40 hours or something of operation, which is stupid, and I probably wouldn't do it, knowing me. So you guys know how much I love my 698, and that bike weighs 330 pounds. This bike weighs 100 pounds less. It's 100 pounds. Dude, this thing is, it literally feels like a toy. I feel like getting wheelies down on this would be a blast, and taking this bike everywhere would be so much fun. It's light enough. I think I could be able to load this bike up in my truck by myself, which is a huge deal to me. But also, yeah, no kickstand either. So he's a little stupid. She's a race bike. What can you expect? I don't know. It's just something I'm going to have to think about, but they do have a pretty good deal on it, and that's why I'm kind of leaning towards buying it. But they've definitely had this bike sitting in here for a while, so I'm very enticed. I don't know. I'm very enticed to get this bike. Not a beginner bike. This is this is bad advice. Don't listen to me. I saw this little abandoned spot. It looks so pretty. I just don't know if the H2 is going to be able to sit on this. Uh-oh, heavy girl, come on. That's a pretty cool photo spot, man. No admittance, personnel only, dog. That fence ain't doing much for you. We got the H2 off-roading, baby. Kind of, not really. Oh, this is such a cool little spot, dude. If this results in me dropping my H2, at least it's content. All right. Well, that looks fine. I've become very anti-expensive bike, if you can't tell. I've owned a BMW, I've owned Ducati V4s, multiple at this point. Kawasaki H2 is one of the most expensive sport bikes that you could buy. It's, I guess, below an H2R, but it's essentially the same thing at a certain point. I guess maybe I was just like not born with enough money that like $40,000 is not something I could just like piss away. That's a lot of money, dude. And it's like when I'm driving around a two-wheeled machine, a little motorcycle that costs more than my truck, I become just like, I don't know, you get worried and stressed about it everywhere you go. And like, I have insurance on it, it's fine, but it's just like that little tweaker coming out of Chipotle, dude. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, is he gonna mess with my bike? I'll get food. I have to worry about that. Meanwhile, with like my V4, again, the V4 is an expensive bike, but still, it's like half the cost of this bike. Well, nearly half the cost of this bike. It's like I don't have to worry about that. It's kind of why I understand. I'm starting to become my dad, maybe, who just drives around an old Camry or an old minivan. It's just like you have this little beater car, you don't really care about it. Imagine how much less stress you must have if you just have a regular vehicle and you just save money. That's why I try to tell people, with your beginner bike, with your first bike, get something cheap. You'll be so much happier and just thank yourself later for it. Whoa! Yo, that's sick! Yo, that's sick as dude. What the what the is that? What is that? I have never seen that in my life, dude. I think we might have picked up a beginner here, lads. The Ninja 250. He's killing the streets. He's killing it. The Ninja 250 killing all the streets. Is that your first bike? First bike? Oh yeah. I should have assumed. Well, as the metaphorical sun sets on our fateful day, I just wanted to bring this back to one final point as we close my beginner bike video. I know the Yamaha MT-07 and the R7 and some of the bikes that we talked about in this video are probably out of some people's price ranges, and that's probably a good thing. My whole point to this video is I just wanted people to come to the conclusion that more expensive things don't always mean better. To be honest with you, a less stressful life is a better life. Doesn't matter how many toys that you fill your life with, if you're living a stressful life, that's not a good thing. So while, yeah, a $25,000 Ducati V4 or a $40,000 H2 might sound enticing, I think you're going to thank yourself in the long term if you start on something small, something cheap, a Ninja 400, something under $3,000 that you can comfortably afford, buy a bunch of gear, and learn how to truly ride that bike. I've been riding for 6 years. I still don't know what I'm doing. I probably shouldn't be riding a Kawasaki H2, but, you know, questionable decisions that you save for later. And on top of that fact, you don't even know if you really like motorcycles. I'll see you guys in the next one. Very excited. Bye-bye.